have a question here from Crystal. And Crystal writes, how do we know what appropriate boundaries are when we've never known them because of trauma? So that's a good question. How do we know if boundaries are appropriate? We have a lot of people who will say, hey, that's an inappropriate boundary. You're going too far. You've crossed over into control. And when we're traumatized, we never knew boundaries. We can feel like we're going too far or being unreasonable with people. When we set our boundaries, we can start to feel guilty. We feel like we're being mean. So it's hard to know what appropriate boundaries actually are. And so I have another video that you can watch that talks about what if you feel guilty, what if you feel like you're being mean, what if you feel like you're being unreasonable. But today I'm going to help you to understand how to identify if your boundaries are appropriate or not. So first you have to recognize that there's no such thing as a list that's going to tell you what appropriate boundaries are. There's no master list that you can consult. You need to meditate. A lack of understanding appropriate boundaries is a lack of meditation. That's your ability to stop, to pause, and to think in any given situation, to assess your feelings. How do I feel right now? Why do I feel that way? What's making me feel this way about this situation? What could I do to change the way I feel? I'm feeling discomfort. How can I feel more comfortable in this situation? That is where you find your boundaries. It is in assessing your feelings. So when you feel uncomfortable, that's a sign in a relationship that you may need to express a boundary. It is your job to create your boundaries, to assert your boundaries, and to enforce your boundaries. It's important to understand that it's all based on your authority, and your authority is to what? Your authority is over your resources, which is yourself. Your resources include your body, your time, your attention, your energy, your beauty, your talents, your children, your animals, your house, your car, anything that belongs to you, anything that by law is under your responsibility, that belongs to you, therefore you have authority over it. So you decide who gets access to it and who doesn't. Does that make sense? All people want access to each other's resources. That's what relationships actually are. It's not soulmates. It's not magical. It's a person values some of your resources and wants access to them. And you value some of their resources and you want access to their resources as well. There are no saints in this. This is exchange of goods and services. Every relationship is transactional. And no one is exempt, and no relationship is exempt. So you might have thought it was based on feelings, or it was a feel, or it was a vibe. No. You like being in their space. You like having their protection. You like having their energy. You like having their leadership. You like having their guidance, their involvement. It's always you like something that they have. It's not a vibe. It's all, every relationship is transactional, and you first must understand that, and that you have the authority over your resources, okay? So based on that authority, what would be an inappropriate boundary? What would be an inappropriate rule or limitation? That's what a boundary is. It's you creating a rule or a limitation for the protection of yourself, for the comfort of yourself, or for the benefit of yourself. And we'll throw standards in there. That's a close cousin of boundary. So rules, limitations, standards that you're creating. What's inappropriate? If you're having trouble thinking of an example, it's because there is no such thing as an inappropriate boundary. That's fallacy. People fall prey to the idea of universality. So they think that there is some sort of universal rules and standards that everyone should understand about each other and our boundaries. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That will have you upset that someone didn't already know that they shouldn't do this or ask for this or cross a boundary. And you go, why didn't they should just know that? That's common sense. No, It's your responsibility to create your boundaries, decide for yourself what you feel is right or wrong, and then let someone know that. To create it and to assert it and enforce it is all on you. So sorry, you don't get to be resentful that someone didn't already know that that was wrong to do that to you, say that to you, act a certain way around you. You understand? It's up to you to establish your boundaries. Some people like it when colleagues crack inappropriate jokes around them or curse around them. Some people do not. There is no universal standard. You decide what you like. Does that make sense? Some people like some women like having a man that tells them what they should wear. And other women are like, absolutely not. That's totally wrong. The problem is you can't enforce your idea on someone else's relationship and say, you can't let a man tell you what to wear. Because some would say, that's my favorite part. I like that this guy tells me, hey, I'm picking you up at this time. Wear this. I don't have to think about it. It makes it easy for me. I'm not saying one is right or wrong, because they're not. It's personal. So you need to meditate and decide for yourself what your standards are and stop worrying about what would be the universal standard or what everyone else would approve of. There's no such thing as universality. That's fallacy of thinking. Likewise, don't look to the outside for approval for the standards that you set. Obviously, people on the outside are going to have disapproval for some of your standards. Guess why? It's because your standards are holding them back from getting access to your resources. So obviously they're not going to like it, and they're going to try to fool you and pressure you and make you think that your standards or your boundaries are wrong. Never give in to pressure when someone's trying to pressure you when you set a boundary. So let's take some quick examples. Is it inappropriate if someone wants to use your car to say, hey, well, if you want to use my car, you've got to wash my car? No, it's up to you. You can set any standard. You can say you have to vacuum it. You can say you have to let me use your car the next weekend. You can say you have to do a song and a dance for me to use my car. You have to pay me $80 to use my car. Nothing, virtually speaking, is an inappropriate ask. You can set any standard. You can set any boundary, create any hoop that someone has to jump through in order to get access to your resources. Does that make sense? So there is no such thing as an appropriate boundary or an inappropriate boundary. You get to decide because it's access to your resources that you have the authority, and your authority is based on that. Let's take, for example, the body. Someone wants to have access to your body. They want to have sex with you. You can set a standard and say, in order to have sex with me, you have to be married to me. That is an example of having a boundary, setting a standard. To the extent that you stick to it is the extent to which you will benefit from setting your standards and boundaries, and you will set that space where you feel comfortable. So you have to analyze for yourself, what are my morals? What are my standards? What are my wants? What are my needs? Okay? What would make me feel comfortable? What's going to make me feel happy? What are my feelings? All that's through analyzation. It's through thinking. Does that make sense? It's through thinking. So, can you even govern the way another person acts? Yes. There is no such thing as an inappropriate boundary or standard. Virtually speaking, you can set any boundary or standard you want. You can even decide how you want another person to behave. You can actually govern their actions with your standards. So you can say, I don't want you wearing that. I don't want you to smoke, not just around me. I don't want you to smoke at all. I don't like you talking to other girls, even when I'm not around. Maybe especially when I'm not around. All of these things, some people could say, well, you're being controlling. It's up to you to decide what your standards are. So if you feel that that's what you want and that's what's going to make you feel comfortable, then you can set that standard. As long as it's based on the authority that you have the ability to take your ball and go home, which is to remove access to your resources. It is not coercive control. Coercive control is where you threaten to harm the other person. If you don't wear what I want you to wear, I'm going to set your house on fire, kill your dog, call your boss, and say bad things about you. That's the difference. That's coercive control, because you're threatening to harm someone. You're trying to use fear against them. But if you're not trying to punish or use harm or threaten them, and you just say, okay, if you don't want to follow my standard, then that's fine. I wish you the best, but I'm going to remove access. That is not under the umbrella of coercive control. You have the right to do that, and you should. So be the queen, be the king of the South, and live in your personal authority. Set boundaries.